My wife cheated with my brother, then stole $250, $0 from our joint account to run away with him. And now she's accusing me of fraud in a legal battle over our house and inheritance. I never thought I'd be writing something like this, but here I am. The most unexpected thing I ever saw was my wife, Lisa, actually cheating on me with my own brother, Mike. And not just that, they stole over $250,000 from our joint account to run off with him. Yeah, I know it sounds like some soap opera plot, but it's real life, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. I still remember walking into our bedroom that day, expecting nothing more than the usual fight over bills or her nagging about the kids, and instead I found her in our bed with Mike, both of them caught off guard like they'd been caught in the act. That image is burned into my brain forever. It started subtly enough. Lisa had been acting weird for a while, distant, distracted, avoiding me. At first, I chalked it up to stress at work, or maybe her being tired from juggling the kids and her part-time job. But then I noticed her phone kept disappearing, and every time I asked to see it, she'd get defensive. She'd lie and say she was texting her friends or checking social media. I didn't want to believe she'd cheat, especially with my own brother. That's the kind of betrayal that cuts deep. But the signs kept piling up. One night I came home unexpectedly early from work. I'd been feeling uneasy all day, like something was off. When I opened the door, the house was eerily quiet. Normally, Lisa would be home, maybe cooking or cleaning, but it was dead silent. I called her name, and that's when I heard it, the muffled sounds coming from our bedroom. My heart started pounding. I pushed the door open, and there they were. My wife Lisa with her head thrown back, moaning, and Mike looking equally guilty but trying to act casual. I froze. My stomach dropped. It was like being hit by a train. I saw her eyes widen in horror, then she scrambled to cover herself, but it was too late. I saw everything I needed to see. I didn't yell or scream right away. I just stood there stunned. My mind was racing, trying to process what I'd just seen. My wife, my brother, these were people I trusted, and they had just betrayed me in the worst way possible. I could feel the rage boiling inside, but I also felt heartbreak. How could she do this? How could my own brother do this? I didn't confront them immediately. Instead, I left the house, went to my office, and sat in silence for hours, trying to figure out what to do next. The next day, I started digging. I checked our bank accounts, and what I saw made my blood run cold. Over $250, $0 had disappeared from our joint account. I knew Lisa had been talking about some big investment, but I had no idea she'd be stupid enough to steal that much money. I also found out she'd been making secret trips, probably with Mike, and using the money to escape the mess she'd created. It all clicked. She was planning to run away with him. And she had the audacity to deny everything, swear she was innocent, that she didn't do anything wrong, that she loved me, and this was all a misunderstanding. I felt betrayed, furious, and utterly devastated. I couldn't believe that my wife, the woman I married and trusted, had been lying to my face for months. I had given her everything, my love, my money, my life, and she repaid me with lies, sex with my own brother, and theft. The pain was overwhelming. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her in bed with Mike. Every time I looked at the bank statement, I saw the money gone. I knew I had to confront her again, but I was also starting to realize that this wasn't just about infidelity anymore. It was about betrayal on every level. That's when I decided I'd had enough. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. I had to find out the truth, expose her, and figure out how to take control of my life again. I wasn't sure exactly what I'd do next, but I knew one thing for sure. The woman I loved was gone, replaced by a liar and a thief, and I was left to pick up the pieces. I'll tell you, the shock of discovering her betrayal was just the beginning of a long, complicated nightmare. After I found out the truth, everything changed. I felt like I was living in some nightmare I couldn't wake up from. The house suddenly felt colder, emptier, like the walls were closing in on me. I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying that moment in my head over and over, her lying there with Mike, the way she looked at him like he was her salvation. I kept asking myself how I missed the signs, how I didn't see what was happening right under my nose. But honestly, the signs had been there. I just refused to see them. I started digging deeper into her phone and emails. I needed proof, something concrete that I could hold onto, something that would make her admit the truth. I found dozens of texts and emails between her and Mike, some explicit, some just full of inside jokes that made me sick to my stomach. She had been lying to me for months, hiding her affair behind a wall of deceit. She told me she was working late, going out with friends or visiting her sister. Meanwhile, she was sneaking around with my brother. It was a level of betrayal I never thought I'd experience. One night I confronted her. I sat her down in the living room, my hands trembling as I handed her the phone with all the messages. Her face twisted into a bitchy sneer and she started lying right away. "You don't understand, John," she said, rolling her eyes. "It's not what you think. Mike and I were just friends. It's complicated. You're overreacting." She looked me dead in the eyes and lied like she didn't even care. She told me she was tired of my accusations, that I was paranoid, that I was ruining everything because I didn't trust her. She called me insecure, said I was controlling. She even had the nerve to say she still loved me and that this was just a mistake, a lapse in judgment. But I wasn't buying it. I looked at her and saw the coldness, the manipulation. She knew exactly what she was doing. The way she lied so effortlessly, like it was just another day, another scheme. I felt a mix of rage and heartbreak. How could she pretend to be innocent after all the lies? I wanted to scream at her, to shake her and demand the truth, but I stayed quiet. I knew I had to keep my cool because I needed her to slip up, to admit something that proved she'd been lying all along. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the money, how she had stolen it, how she'd been planning to run away with Mike all along. I realized she'd been manipulating me from the start, playing the innocent wife while she was secretly with my brother. The betrayal burned so deep I could hardly breathe. I started to think about my options. I knew I couldn't just let her get away with this. I had to do something, something legal, something smart, something to make her pay. I wasn't about to let her walk away with my life, my money, and my reputation. The next day, I started making calls. I reached out to a lawyer I knew from work, someone who specialized in family law and financial crimes. I needed to understand my rights, how much of the money I could recover, and what legal steps I could take. I also hired a private investigator to dig into her financials further. I wanted to know if she'd hidden more money elsewhere, if she had any backup plans or secret accounts. The more I uncovered, the more I realized how deep this betrayal went. She wasn't just cheating on me. She was stealing from me our marriage, everything we built together. Meanwhile, Lisa kept up her act. She was bitchy, dismissive, and constantly throwing up new lies to cover her tracks. She insisted she was innocent, that I was overreacting, that I was just jealous and insecure. She accused me of being controlling because I asked to see the bank statements. She called me paranoid because I wanted to know what she was doing with the money. She even started spinning stories about how I was trying to ruin her, how I was making everything up to punish her. That was her favorite line, blaming me, turning everything around, trying to make me look like the bad guy. But I knew better. I saw her for what she was, a liar, a cheat, and a thief. In the middle of all this chaos, I also had to deal with the emotional toll. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of betrayal. The woman I married, the woman I loved, she was gone. Replaced by someone who lied to my face, who betrayed me with my own brother, who stole everything from us. I was angry, yes, but mostly I was heartbroken. I had trusted her with everything, our house, our kids, our future, and she had thrown it all away for sex and greed. The worst part was the feeling of helplessness, knowing I couldn't undo what was done, only figure out how to fix what was left. I knew I had to be smart. I had to protect myself legally, financially, emotionally. I couldn't just go on feeling helpless, waiting for her to admit guilt. I needed to take control of the situation, to prepare for whatever was coming next, because I knew she was capable of anything. The betrayal had opened my eyes to a side of her I'd never seen before, and I wasn't about to let her get away with it, not without consequences. It was only the beginning of a long, messy fight, but I was determined to come out on top. After I gathered enough evidence and documented everything I could find, I realized I had to confront her again, but this time with a clear plan. I arranged to meet Lisa in a neutral place, Some coffee shop downtown where I knew she wouldn't be able to spin her lies easily. I wanted her to see I was serious, that I wasn't going to be played anymore. When she arrived, she looked irritated, like she was already prepared to dismiss everything and brush me off. That bitchy smirk she always wore when she thought she was winning. Yeah, I saw it, and it made my blood boil. I laid out everything I had discovered. The texts, the emails, the bank statements, the fact that she'd stolen over $250, $0. I watched her face twist in disbelief, then quickly turn into anger. Her eyes flashed with annoyance and she started denying everything. John, you're crazy. You're just paranoid. There's no proof I've done anything wrong. You're accusing me of things I didn't do. She was good at lying, I'll give her that. She kept insisting she was innocent, that she loved me, that I was overreacting. She even tried to manipulate me, saying I was insecure and that I had trust issues. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I looked her straight in the eyes and told her, I have all the proof I need. You've been lying to me for months, cheating on me with Mike, stealing our money, and now you're trying to make me look crazy. Her face started to change, the mask slipping for a moment. That's when she got defensive, raising her voice, trying to turn the tables. You don't understand, John. This is all a mistake. I swear I didn't mean for it to go this far. I was lonely and Mike been there for me. It didn't mean anything. That's when I realized her lies were endless. She was trying to justify her actions, spinning some story about being lonely and misunderstood, like that somehow excused everything. I told her flat out, you stole from us, Lisa. You lied, cheated, and betrayed everything we had, and I'm not going to let you get away with it. I think that was the moment she saw I was serious. Her face turned red and she stormed off, yelling that I was overreacting, that I didn't understand her, that she was the victim here. That confrontation was a turning point. It made me see how deep her manipulation went. She was so good at acting innocent, at hiding her true intentions, that I almost doubted myself. But I knew better now. I had concrete proof, and I wasn't going to let her spin her way out of this. I also started to realize that her accusations against me, saying I was trying to fraudulently take the house or the inheritance, were just more lies to distract from her own guilt. I knew she was trying to frame me, to muddy the waters, because she was desperate to cover her tracks. Emotionally, I was exhausted. I felt betrayed, furious, and damaged. I had trusted her with everything, and she had repaid that trust with lies, sex with my brother, and theft. But I also felt a strange sense of clarity. It was like I'd been blind, but now I could see clearly. I knew I had to act fast to protect myself legally and financially. I contacted my lawyer again, explained everything, and started to prepare for a possible legal battle. I wasn't just going to let her walk away with the money and the house. No way. Meanwhile, she kept up her act, trying to deny everything, calling me names and accusing me of trying to ruin her life. She claimed she was the victim, that I was controlling and paranoid. She even threw in some tears, trying to appear innocent, but I could see through it. I knew her game. She was trying to manipulate the situation, to make me doubt myself, to turn everyone against me, but I refused to fall for it. I had the evidence, and I was ready to fight for what was mine. In the days that followed, I felt like I was walking on a tightrope. Every time I thought I had a handle on things, she'd throw another curveball, more lies, more accusations, more attempts to sway me. I stayed calm, collected, and focused. I was determined not to let her manipulate me anymore. I knew this wasn't just about the money or the house. It was about respect, trust, and justice. I had to stand my ground no matter how much it hurt. I had loved her once, but now I saw her for what she truly was, a liar, a cheater, and a thief. I didn't know how this would end, but I knew I couldn't keep living in this chaos forever. It was time to take control and face whatever came next. After I had that confrontation, I knew I couldn't just sit back and wait for everything to fall apart on its own. Lisa's lies kept piling up, and I realized I had to be proactive if I wanted to protect myself and my future. The first thing I did was hire a forensic accountant to dig into her financial records even further. I needed to see exactly where the money went, how much she'd hidden, and if she had any other accounts or assets she wasn't telling me about. That was a brutal process, going through her bank statements, credit card bills, and even her secret emails. It was like peeling back layers of a lie, and each new discovery made my blood boil more. One shocking find was a series of transactions where she transferred large sums to offshore accounts. I couldn't believe how deep her deception ran. She planned this for months, maybe even years. She'd been secretly squirreling away money, probably with Mike's help. I also found out she'd been talking to a lawyer about how to hide her assets, how to make it look like she had nothing. When she tried to claim the house or the inheritance, that was the moment I realized she wasn't just a cheating wife. She was a criminal in the making. I started talking to my lawyer about what legal options I had. The main thing I wanted was to freeze her assets and prevent her from moving or hiding any more money. I also filed for a legal separation, just to protect myself and the house. I didn't want her to be able to claim everything once she ran off with Mike. The lawyer warned me that she might try to accuse me of fraud or try to manipulate the legal process to her advantage. That's when I decided I needed to step up my game. I hired a private investigator, not just to dig into her finances but also to follow her around. I wanted to know exactly where she was going, who she was meeting, and if she had any backup plans. Meanwhile, Lisa was still acting out. She started throwing accusations at me, saying I was trying to ruin her reputation, that I was the real criminal here. She called me controlling, said I was paranoid, and even accused me of cheating on her myself. I couldn't believe her audacity. She was trying to turn everyone against me, painting herself as the victim in all of this. But I knew better. I had the evidence, and I wasn't going to let her manipulate the situation anymore. One day, she showed up at the house unexpectedly, crying and begging me to forgive her, saying she was sorry and that she'd change. It was the classic "I love you, but I made a mistake" act. I looked at her and saw right through her tears. I told her that I didn't believe her anymore, that her actions had destroyed everything we had built. I told her I was done being played. That's when she got angry, calling me a controlling bastard and accusing me of trying to ruin her life. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her, and I knew this was no longer about love or even just trust. It was about survival. With all this chaos, I also had to deal with the emotional toll. I felt like I was losing my mind. One minute I was furious, the next I was heartbroken. I kept asking myself how she could do this to me, to our family. I thought about the nights we spent together, the plans we made, the future I thought we had. And then I remembered her sneaking around, the lies, the sex with Mike, and the money she stole. It was like my entire world had been turned upside down. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep. I was angry at her, but I also felt a deep sadness. I loved her once, and now I was facing the fact that she'd become a stranger, someone I didn't recognize. Despite everything, I refused to give up. I knew I had to stay strong for myself and for my kids. I started documenting everything, the lies, the thefts, the conversations. I wanted to make sure I had a solid case once I went to court. I also reached out to a divorce lawyer to understand what I could expect. I knew I wasn't just fighting for the house or the money. I was fighting to get my life back from someone who had betrayed me so completely. One thing I learned from all this is that betrayal cuts deep, but it also reveals who people really are. Lisa's true character came out in her lies and manipulations. I realized I couldn't force her to change or be honest. The only thing I could do was protect myself, gather evidence, and prepare for the worst. I started to accept that I might lose her, and that's a hard pill to swallow. But I also knew I had to focus on rebuilding my life piece by piece, no matter how hard that might be. The pain was real, but I was determined not to let her win. Not this time. By now, I was deep into legal preparations. I had my lawyer drawing up papers for divorce, and I was working closely with the forensic accountant to make sure every penny Lisa had stolen or hidden was accounted for. I knew she was trying to spin this as some kind of misunderstanding or accident, but I wasn't buying it anymore. The evidence spoke volumes. She was a master manipulator, trying to turn the situation around and make herself look innocent. But I saw through her act. I could see her bitchy attitude, the way she dismissed my concerns as paranoia, and her constant lying. It was clear she was desperate. One day, she showed up at my office unannounced. She had that bitchy smirk on her face, trying to act like she was the victim again. She kept insisting she was innocent, that I was just trying to ruin her, that she loved me and only wanted the best for our family. Yeah, right. I told her I wasn't falling for her lies anymore. I handed her a copy of the evidence I'd gathered, texts, emails, bank statements, everything. I told her she had no choice but to face the truth. She looked at it, her face twisting into a sneer, and then she started yelling. She called me controlling, said I was paranoid, that I was trying to ruin her reputation. Her reaction didn't surprise me. I knew she was cornered. She was trying to manipulate everyone around her, family, friends, even the legal system. She kept claiming she was innocent, that she hadn't stolen a dime, that I was just trying to frame her to take the house and inheritance. She even accused me of cheating on her, something I was innocent of, but I knew she was trying to distract from her own guilt. I told her that her lies wouldn't work anymore, that I had enough proof to fight her in court, and that I was done being manipulated. Meanwhile, I had already started the process of freezing her assets. I worked with the lawyer to get a court order that prevented her from transferring any more money or selling the house. I also filed for full custody of the kids, knowing she'd try to manipulate them or spin stories to turn them against me. I was determined to protect what was left of my family and my future. I also started gathering witnesses, friends and neighbors who might testify about her behavior, her lies, her thefts. I knew this was going to be a long fight, but I was ready. The emotional toll was heavy. I felt like I was losing my mind some days. The woman I loved, the woman I trusted, she was gone, replaced by this cold, manipulative stranger who only cared about herself. I kept asking myself how she could do this, how she could betray me so completely. I remembered the good times, the nights we spent together, the plans we made. And then I thought about her sneaking around, sex with my brother, stealing our money. It was like my entire world was shattered into pieces. Despite all that, I knew I had to stay focused. I couldn't let her control me or manipulate the system. I had to be smart and patient. Every day, I pushed myself to keep going, to stay strong for my kids and myself. I knew she was trying to paint herself as the victim, but I refused to buy into her lies anymore. I saw her for what she really was, a selfish, manipulative woman who'd do anything for her own gain. I had to remember that, especially when the emotional pain threatened to overwhelm me. I was hurt, angry, and betrayed, but I also knew that I couldn't let her win. I had to fight for my future, for my dignity, and for the truth. That's what kept me going through the darkest days. The final stretch was the hardest, but also the most revealing. After months of legal battles, evidence gathering, and emotional exhaustion, I finally stood in court. Lisa was there, looking bitchy and defiant, trying to spin her lies one last time. She insisted she was innocent, that I was trying to ruin her, that she loved the house and the kids and never stole a penny. But I had everything laid out, proof of her affair, the stolen money, the offshore accounts, the lies. I saw her face twitch when she realized she couldn't deny it anymore. The judge listened carefully as my lawyer presented the case. It was clear that Lisa had been lying, cheating, stealing, and manipulating from the start. The court awarded me full custody of the kids, froze her assets, and ordered her to pay back the stolen money. The house was awarded to me, and she was ordered to vacate within a month. I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. Relief because I finally had some justice, but emptiness because I knew the woman I once loved was gone forever. Lisa's face twisted in anger when she realized she'd lost everything she tried to manipulate her way into. She yelled and accused me of framing her, of ruining her life, but the judge didn't buy her bullshit. She was ordered to pay restitution and face criminal charges for the theft. The truth had finally come out, and her lies couldn't hold up anymore. Watching her leave the courtroom in tears, I felt a strange sense of closure, but also a heavy weight of regret. In the aftermath, I started to rebuild. I focused on my kids, making sure they felt loved and protected after all the chaos. I found a new job, one that allowed me to provide and heal. I also cut ties with Mike, who faced his own legal issues, but I didn't care about him anymore. My priority was to get my life back on track, piece by piece. The betrayal had been brutal, but it taught me a lot about trust, manipulation, and resilience. Looking back, I realized that the biggest lesson I learned is that people can surprise you, sometimes in the worst ways. Trust is fragile, and betrayal can come from the people you least expect. But I also learned that standing up for yourself, gathering evidence, and fighting for what's right is the only way to survive such chaos. I lost a wife I loved, yes, but I gained clarity and strength I didn't know I had. I learned to be cautious, to trust my instincts, and to never let anyone manipulate or control me again. Now I'm focused on moving forward, rebuilding my life, and making sure my kids know they are loved and protected. I still get angry sometimes, especially when I think about how Lisa betrayed me and my family. But I also feel a sense of peace, knowing I did everything I could, standing tall against her lies and manipulations. It's been a hell of a journey, but I came out of it stronger. And I hope others can learn from my story, to trust wisely, to protect what's yours, and never to let betrayal define you.